Tonight on Fear NOX, we ride shotgun on the routes that only look familiar from daylight. Porches with motion lights that trip late, side gates that don't latch, and alleys where house numbers go missing in the rain. These 10 accounts come from parcel drivers, night supervisors, apartment porters, and homeowners who saved footage because the scanner traffic didn't match the time on their doorbells. Suburban cul-de-sacs to inner-city service roads, November through first ice. We track decoy pickups, wrong-way GPS arrows, and packages that scan delivered while the van is still 3 blocks out. No spoilers, just what made professionals stop and write it down. Subscribe and hit the bell. If you've ever stepped onto a slick porch with both hands full, this one's for you. These are real shifts, real corners. Listen close. Drop your own story below. We read them all. All right, let's get into it. I've been a parcel delivery driver for 17 years. That's long enough to know the rhythm of the routes, the quirks of the neighborhoods, and the exact weight of a box just by the way it settles in your hand. My region covers the older, established suburbs, where the lawns are manicured and the houses often have elaborate security systems. I operate out of a standard high-roof delivery van, equipped with a handheld scanner, a mounted GPS display, and a dash camera that records everything. My scanner is my lifeline. It tracks every package, every scan, every timestamp, every GPS coordinate. Without it, the day doesn't happen. The system is designed for precision, for accountability. Every delivery is a digital footprint. My routine is ingrained. Pull up to the curb, engage the parking brake, grab the package, scan the barcode to initiate the delivery sequence. Then, it's a quick walk to the porch, place the box, snap a photo with the scanner, and, finally, mark it delivered. The scanner automatically logs the exact time and verifies the GPS coordinates against the package's intended address. It's a tight system, leaving no room for error or ambiguity. That's the protocol. That's how we ensure packages get where they're going. And that's how we protect ourselves from false claims. It was a Tuesday, mid-afternoon, on a route I've driven hundreds of times. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that makes the asphalt shimmer. I was heading into the 1400 block of Elm Street, a quiet cul-de-sac. Package for 1422 Elm, a small flat box, probably electronics. I pulled the van to the curb, the engine ticking as it cooled. I grabbed the box, scanned it, and started down the short path to the front door. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification. It was from a customer's doorbell camera. Motion detected at front door. This wasn't unusual. Many customers link their doorbell cameras to their delivery notifications. What was unusual was that it buzzed just as I stepped onto the first flagstone of the path, still 10 feet from the porch. I hadn't even reached the door yet. I figured it was just a sensitivity setting, picking me up early. A minor glitch, nothing to worry about. I often dismiss these small things when I'm trying to make good time. I continued my walk, the scent of freshly cut grass from a neighboring yard sharp and green in the humid air. It was a smell that always reminded me of summer evenings as a kid, playing hide and seek until the streetlights came on. A stark contrast to the growing unease I was about to feel. As I reached the porch, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a package delivered notification. My own scanner, still in my hand, hadn't even registered the final delivery scan yet. I hadn't placed the box. I hadn't taken the photo. My thumb was still hovering over the delivered button. I looked down at the scanner screen. It blinked, then changed. Delivery confirmed. 1422 Elm Street, 1437:12. My watch read 1437:42, 30 seconds early. I stared at the scanner, then at the empty porch. The box was still in my hand. This wasn't a glitch. This was a violation of the core protocol. The system was supposed to wait for my input. I checked the van's GPS display, visible from the porch. It showed the van's icon still parked in the alley behind the house, not even on Elm Street, let alone at number 1422. A common error on my part would be forgetting to update the scanner's GPS, but the van's system was independent. It was always accurate. I stood there, the package still in my hand, my mind racing. I had to check the doorbell cam notification. I opened the app on my phone. The video started playing automatically. It showed the porch of 1422 Elm, the exact porch I was standing on. And it showed me, or rather, someone who looked exactly like me, in my uniform, walking up to the door. This figure was holding the exact same package I had in my hand. He placed it neatly on the mat, took a quick photo with a device that looked like my scanner, and then turned to walk away. The timestamp on the video read 14:37:08. My stomach dropped. This was 4 seconds before the scanner in my hand registered the delivery. And it was 34 seconds before I was actually standing on that porch. I hadn't even reached the steps. I replayed the video. This time, I focused on the details. The house number stenciled on the porch pillar. On the video, it clearly read 1422. But the paint looked fresh, almost wet. And the twos had a slightly different curve than I remembered from previous deliveries. I looked at the actual pillar beside me. The numbers were dry, faded from years of sun, and the twos were definitely sharper, more angular. They were different. Not drastically, but undeniably. I took a deep breath, trying to rationalize it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was seeing things. I'd had a long day. But the timestamps, the conflicting GPS, the video of me delivering a package I hadn't yet placed. I placed the actual box on the mat, took the photo with my scanner, and manually confirmed the delivery. My scanner now read 14:38:15. I took a moment to compare the photo I just took with the one from the doorbell camera. They were identical. The placement of the box, the angle, the background, everything matched. Except for the house numbers on the pillar in the doorbell footage, which still looked freshly painted and slightly off. I walked back to the van, my mind a tangle of impossible data. I called dispatch. This is Unit 7. I have a strange situation at 1422 Elm. My scanner logged a delivery 30 seconds before I physically arrived at the location. And the van's GPS shows me in the alley at that time. There was a pause. Yes, Unit 7. Can you confirm the delivery was made successfully? Yes, I physically placed the package, but the system logged it before I did. And the customer's doorbell cam shows me placing it even earlier than that, with different house numbers. Another pause, longer this time. Unit 7. Are you experiencing any equipment malfunctions? Your scanner data appears consistent with a successful delivery at 14:37:12. No, my equipment is fine. That's the problem. The data is consistent, but it's wrong. It's a delivery that happened before I made it. The van GPS shows me 150 feet away, in the alley, at 14:37:12. Unit 7. Please verify your current GPS coordinates. They show you at 1422 Elm Street now, at 14:40:05. Yes, I'm here, now. But 30 seconds before that, the van was in the alley. The scanner marked delivery from the porch, and the doorbell cam shows me delivering it even earlier. I was talking in circles. How do you explain a delivery made by your future self with a timestamp that predates your physical presence and GPS data that contradicts itself? Unit 7. Please proceed with your route. If you believe there's a system error, log it through the standard report form at the end of your shift. The dispatcher's voice was polite but firm. It was clear they thought I was either confused or trying to cover a mistake. There was no protocol for a temporal paradox. I ended the call. The standard report form wouldn't have a category for this. How could I explain that the system, the very foundation of my job, had logged an event that hadn't happened yet, at a location I hadn't reached, witnessed by a camera showing a slightly altered reality? The evidence was there, trapped in digital echoes. A doorbell pinging a delivery before arrival, a scanner marking it early, a van's GPS contradicting everything, and 2 sets of house numbers on the same porch. I had to abandon the protocol of accurate logging because the truth was impossible to log. I just drove away. The package for 1422 Elm delivered. But the unsettling feeling that something had delivered it before me, lingering like the humid air. I've been the night supervisor at this depot for 11 years. The hum of the sorting machinery, even when quieted for the night shift, is a familiar thrum in my bones. My job, especially during the holiday surge, is to ensure every package assigned to a route gets logged as delivered, every truck accounted for, every driver's manifest closed out clean. We run a tight ship, relying on precise GPS data, time-stamped scans, and photo verification for every single stop. It's a system designed to be foolproof, to eliminate ambiguity. Tonight, the air was thick with the smell of wet asphalt and exhaust fumes, a typical December evening. The final vans were pulling into their bays, their engines cooling with a series of metallic ticks. Drivers were filing in, dropping their scanners into the charging cradles, their faces etched with the fatigue of a 12-hour run. I was at my console, monitoring the route board, the glowing grid of completed deliveries and outstanding packages. Each green square represented a successful drop-off, a unique stop ID tied to a manifest, a GPS coordinate, a timestamp, and a proof of delivery photo. This digital paper trail is our bedrock. Every stop ID is unique. It has to be. That's the rule. Unit 77's route closed out, then Unit 83's. Both manifests scrolled across my screen, green squares piling up. Then, the system flashed amber. A duplicate stop ID. Not a common occurrence, but during the holiday surge with 1 million packages flowing through, sometimes a data entry error could slip in. A customer might place 2 identical orders, or a system glitch could assign the same internal ID twice. My first thought was simple fatigue. I'd been on shift for 16 hours straight, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the sheer momentum of the season. I probably just misread the initial alert. I clicked on the amber flag. The system confirmed it. Stop ID 408-77-C. Address: 1422 Sycamore Lane, Elmwood. Both Unit 77 and Unit 83 had logged a delivery for it. "Hey, Supervisor," Unit 77's driver called out, already halfway to the break room. "Got that Sycamore Lane stop done. Customer wasn't home, left it on the porch." "Same here," Unit 83's driver added, passing by. "Porch drop. Got the photo uploaded." I nodded, already pulling up the delivery records. 2 different drivers, 2 different routes, both claiming delivery to the same address. This was unusual. Usually, a duplicate stop meant one driver had the correct package and the other had a phantom entry, easily resolved by checking the physical packages. But both drivers had completed their manifests. No undelivered packages remained for that stop. I pulled up the proof of delivery photos. This is where the system usually clears things up. Different angles, different times, different light. But what popped onto my screen made me pause. And then lean closer. The first photo from Unit 77. A standard porch shot. A dark green wreath slightly askew hung on a white front door. A welcome mat, dark with moisture, lay flat. To the left of the door, on a small side table, sat an empty space where a decorative cat statue should have been. I knew this because our dispatch notes sometimes included specific instructions like, "Leave by the ceramic cat." The note for this stop simply said, "Porch drop." I clicked to the second photo from Unit 83. My breath hitched. It was the exact same image. The wreath tilted to the left at the identical angle. The welcome mat, wet in the same pattern, looked indistinguishable. And the same empty space on the side table. The missing cat statue. The light in both photos, the shadows cast by the porch overhang, were identical. This wasn't just a duplicate stop ID. This was an impossible duplicate. "Did either of you guys coordinate on that Sycamore Lane stop?" I asked, my voice cutting through the general chatter of the closing shift. Unit 77's driver, now sipping coffee, looked over. "Coordinate? No. I just ran my route. Got there around 4:30 p.m. Unit 83's driver, collecting his lunchbox, chimed in. "I hit it around 6:15 p.m. Why? A 2-hour gap. Yet the photos were identical. This wasn't a case of one driver borrowing another's photo, a shortcut I'd seen attempted before, quickly flagged by time and GPS data. The timestamps were distinct. The GPS coordinates for both deliveries were identical, down to the decimal point. I opened the GIS mapping software, pulling up 1422 Sycamore Lane, Elmwood. The map zoomed in, showing a quiet cul-de-sac, ringed by single-family homes. A standard suburban street. I cross-referenced the address with the zip code data. That's when the first real jolt hit me. The cul-de-sac, 1422 Sycamore Lane, Elmwood, was listed in our database as existing in 2 different zip codes, 07003 and 07004. 2 different blocks, technically, but the street name and number were identical. The mapping software, usually so precise, showed a single physical cul-de-sac. But the overlaid data had it spanning an impossible boundary, a digital ghost. I remembered a time, decades ago, before GPS, when I was a kid delivering newspapers. Just me, a bike, and a canvas bag. You knew your route, house by house, the feel of the paper hitting the porch. Simple, tangible. This digital mess felt like a betrayal of that simplicity. My next step was to check the doorbell chime logs. Our smart doorbells, installed by contract for certain high-value deliveries, record a chime whenever the button is pressed or the motion sensor is triggered by a delivery. It's another layer of verification. For 1422 Sycamore Lane, Elmwood, the system showed only one chime recorded, a single entry, time-stamped 4:31 p.m. This matched Unit 77's delivery time. There was no chime record for 6:15 p.m., when Unit 83 claimed to have delivered. This was a direct contradiction. Two distinct deliveries, two identical photos, but only one recorded interaction. How could Unit 83's driver have delivered a package to an identical porch, captured an identical photo, but not triggered the doorbell? Our system is designed to trigger on motion and button press. I called the customer service line, a protocol for resolving delivery disputes. I need to verify a delivery for 1422 Sycamore Lane, Elmwood, I stated. We have two records. The representative pulled up the file. One moment. Yes, I see a delivery confirmed for today. Package ID 408-77-C. Recipient confirmed. And the other one? I asked. There is no other package for that address today, the rep replied, her voice flat. Just the one. My head throbbed. The system thought it had two deliveries. The drivers believed they had made two deliveries. I had two identical photos, but the customer service record, the physical package tracking, and the doorbell chime log all pointed to only one actual event. I pulled up the two photos again, side by side on my main monitor. The tilted wreath, the wet mat, the empty space where the cat statue should have been. I zoomed in on the texture of the door, the individual bristles of the mat. They were exact, not just similar, but pixel for pixel identical. It was as if the same moment in time had been captured twice, hours apart, by two different cameras. The database duplicate wasn't just a data entry error. It was a phantom address, a ghost stop that had manifested physically enough to draw in two drivers, yet only one of them had actually interacted with the real world. The cul-de-sac existed, but in our system, it was superimposed on itself, a digital double exposure. One real, one a mirage, and both drivers had seen the mirage, or rather, the same mirage. I tried to call the customer at 1422 Sycamore Lane to ask about the missing cat statue. Just a vague detail that might differentiate the porches. The phone rang 3 times, then went to voicemail. The message was a generic, automated greeting. No personal voice. No way to confirm if the porch in the photo was even their porch. The depot was almost empty now. The last driver had left. The hum of the servers was louder in the silence. I sat there, staring at the screen. The two identical photos a stark, impossible contradiction. The system, my reliable bedrock, had presented me with a reality it couldn't explain. 2 routes, 1 porch, 1 doorbell chime, and a missing cat statue that was never there in the first place. I had no protocol for this. Just the lingering, cold dread of a system that had somehow created its own impossible truth. I've been an apartment porter for 15 years, mostly in high-rise residential buildings like this one, here in the city's financial district. My job is a mix of maintenance, logistics, and a surprising amount of low-level security. I know these buildings inside and out, their plumbing, their wiring, their temperamental freight elevators. I've seen everything from burst pipes on the 30th floor to residents trying to move a grand piano through the lobby. My tools are standard: a multi-tool, a handheld scanner for packages, an access badge for every door and elevator, and a deep understanding of the building's systems. My shift starts at 6 a.m., and most days run like clockwork, a predictable sequence of tasks. Trash runs, light bulb replacements, minor repairs, and the constant flow of incoming parcels. One of the most critical systems in any high-rise is the elevator network. We have 4 passenger lifts and 1 dedicated freight elevator. Each is serviced monthly, and daily checks are part of my routine. The floor numbering is standard: B for basement parking, 1 for the lobby, then 2 through 45 for residential units. Every floor has a purpose, a physical space, and a corresponding digit on the elevator panel. This system is absolute. It's the bedrock of navigation, part of the building's very identity. My access badge is programmed with permissions for all floors, logging my movements for security and accountability. Every swipe, every floor selection, every entry and exit is recorded. It's a clean, efficient digital trail. Last Tuesday, that bedrock cracked. A squall blew in overnight, stronger than anything we'd seen in years. The wind howled through the canyons of glass and steel, rattling windows and triggering a brief but total power outage just before my shift began. The generators kicked in within seconds, but the sudden cut and restoration always cause a ripple effect through the building's electronics. My first task was a system check. The passenger elevators cycled through their floors. Lights flickered back to full brightness, and the security monitors rebooted. Everything seemed to stabilize. I headed down to the basement to check the freight elevator. It's a workhorse, constantly moving deliveries, furniture, and refuse. I called it from B to 1, then back down. As the car ascended, the digital display above the doors cycled through B. Then, for a fraction of a second, it flashed 0 before settling on 1. I blinked, dismissing it as a post-outage glitch. The system was still settling. I was tired, having been up an extra hour dealing with a minor leak on the 12th floor caused by the storm. And my focus was on getting everything back to normal operation. I logged the elevator check as, "Okay, post-outage cycle complete." A minor mistake, perhaps, but at the time it felt insignificant. The next step was the package room, located just off the service alley on the ground floor. Deliveries had piled up during the outage. I rolled out my heavy-duty hand truck and began the methodical process of scanning each parcel. The scanner reads the barcode, cross-references it with our resident database, and assigns it to a numbered slot in the package room. It's a foolproof system, or it should be. I worked through the usual array of boxes: pet food, clothing, electronics. Then I picked up a stack of 5 identical, small, unmarked brown parcels. They felt heavier than they looked, dense, with no return address, just a printed shipping label. I scanned the first one. The display on my handheld unit flashed an error. Apartment 0, no record. I tried the second. Same result. The third. Fourth. Fifth. All for apartment 0. I knew every apartment number in this building. They ran from 201 to 4503. There was no apartment 0. I checked the physical mailbox grid, running my finger across the numbered slots. No, I searched for 0. Nothing. I even pulled out the building's master blueprints, which detailed every square foot, every utility closet, every storage locker. No floor 0, no apartment 0. It simply didn't exist. My professional protocol for undeliverable packages was clear. Attempt rescan, check database, contact resident if possible, then return to sender. But how do you return to apartment 0? How do you contact a resident who doesn't exist? The system itself had accepted these labels, yet couldn't process them. It was a paradox. I set the stack aside, creating a new, unsanctioned category, unresolvable anomaly. This was the first time a core protocol had failed so utterly. Later that afternoon, I had to move a new washing machine up to the 23rd floor. As I rode the freight elevator, I watched the display more closely. From B, it went to 1, then 2, 3. But just as it passed the ground floor, for a brief, almost imperceptible moment, the 0 flickered again. It was too quick to be a system error. It was a display. Like a ghost image, a phantom floor. The air in the stairwell, as I walked down after the delivery, smelled faintly of ozone and damp concrete. A scent I usually associated with summer rain. Not this kind of chill. It was a vivid smell, but had nothing to do with the elevator. The 0 and the apartment 0 packages gnawed at me. My job relied on order, on systems working as designed. This was a fundamental breakdown. I decided to review the security camera footage from the freight elevator. Every car has internal cameras, recording all activity. I pulled up the footage from that morning, specifically the time I first noticed the 0 display. I watched myself on screen, pushing the hand truck onto the freight elevator from the basement. I swiped my access badge against the reader inside the car, selecting 1. The footage showed me standing alone. The hand truck beside me, the doors closing. The display above the doors, clearly visible in the frame, cycled from B to 0 to 1. It was undeniable. Then I cross-referenced the video timestamp with the badge access logs. My badge, my unique identifier, had pinged. The log entry showed my badge accessing 2 floors simultaneously, B and 0. Not B then 1, not B then an error. It registered B and 0 at the exact same millisecond. I remembered a time years ago, before I got this job, when I'd spend hours in arcades, pushing buttons, trying to glitch games. This felt less like a glitch and more like a deliberate, impossible input. I replayed it. My badge, swiped once, registered twice. And one of those registrations was for a floor that didn't exist. A floor that only appeared as a flicker on the elevator display. The camera showed me alone, riding from B to 1. The log showed my badge accessing B and 0. It was a contradiction that defied logic, a digital impossibility. The system, which was designed to be infallible, had recorded a journey to a non-existent destination. I tried to replicate it. I went back to the freight elevator, swiped my badge, tried different floor combinations. But the log entries were always singular, clean, and correct. The 0 display didn't reappear. The system seemed to have reverted to its normal, predictable self. But the packages for apartment 0 were still in the package room, a constant, tangible reminder. The security log entry for my badge, accessing B and 0 simultaneously, remained. It was an immutable digital fact, contradicting physical reality. I filed a report detailing the elevator display, the packages, and the badge log anomaly. The supervisor reviewed it, then just stared at me blankly. "Keep the packages quarantined," he said. "We'll look into the elevator software." But I knew it wasn't just software. It was something else. Something in the building had shifted. And for a brief, impossible moment, a floor that shouldn't exist had made itself known. I still check the freight elevator display every morning. And I still wonder what, or who, might be waiting for those packages addressed to Apartment 0. I've been a courier for 8 years now, mostly evening shifts, covering the suburban sprawl west of the city. My route is a grid of cul-de-sacs and residential lanes, familiar enough that I could navigate most of it blindfolded. My vehicle is a standard cargo van, equipped with a GPS, a company-issued scanner, and a tablet for manifests and proof of delivery photos. Tonight was a Tuesday, late October. The air had that crisp, damp edge that promises winter, and a low, flat cloud cover smothered any moonlight. My last few drops were in a quiet, older neighborhood, houses set back from the street, mature trees casting deep shadows. Our protocol is clear. Verify the address, confirm the recipient, and obtain a signature or photo proof of delivery. Any deviation from the manifest, especially after dark, requires immediate contact with dispatch. We don't engage in unscheduled handovers, not without explicit company approval. It's for our safety and chain of custody integrity. This isn't just company policy. It's common sense when you're out alone after dark, carrying valuables. The app directed me to 1420 Briarwood Lane. It was a standard package, average size, nothing to suggest anything unusual. As I pulled up, my phone, resting on the dash mount, vibrated. A text message. The number wasn't in my contacts, but I recognized the last 4 digits from the order notes on my manifest. A customer contact field, usually for delivery instructions if the recipient won't be home. The message read, "I'm out back, just hand it over." My first thought was annoyance. Another customer trying to shortcut the system. But it was late. I was on my last leg of the route, and part of me just wanted to clear the manifest. I'd done similar unofficial handovers before, usually with regulars who preferred to meet me at their garage or back door. A minor deviation, I told myself, just a quick check. This was my mistake. I should have called dispatch immediately. I drove past the main house slowly. The property was dark, no lights on in the front. A narrow, unpaved lane ran along the left side, barely wide enough for a single vehicle. I hesitated, then eased the van into it, the tires crunching on loose gravel. The lane ended at a tall wooden privacy fence. A side gate painted dark green was set into it. As I approached, the gate without any visible push or pull swung inward a few inches, emitting a low, drawn-out groan from its top hinge. The sound was like a tired sigh. Above the gate, a motion-activated floodlight remained stubbornly dark. I stood there for a moment, waiting for it to click on, but the deep shadow persisted. The air, already cool, felt colder right there. I pushed the gate open further. The wood felt rough, damp beneath my fingers. A faint, sweet smell of decaying leaves and wet earth hung heavy in the air, a scent I always associated with autumn evenings, reminding me of childhood walks through the woods behind my grandparents' old farm. Beyond the gate, a narrow, winding flagstone path led into what felt like a neglected backyard. Tall, unkempt shrubs brushed against my jacket as I moved. No lights, just the faint glow from the distant street filtering through the branches. The path opened onto a small concrete patio. In the center sat a large, dark gray plastic storage box, the kind people use for cushions or pool supplies. My eyes adjusted to the dimness. On the lid of the box, a faded, peeling label was visible. It read in block letters, "Apartment of the Miller family." The name on my package manifest was Henderson. No match, not even close. I stood there, the package still in my hand, scanning the shadows. No movement, no sound beyond the distant hum of the city. The silence was heavy, unnatural for a residential area. I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. My internal alarm bells, which I'd ignored minutes earlier, were now ringing loud. This wasn't right. The text, the dark lane, the silent gate, the non-matching name. I decided to abort. I turned, retracing my steps quickly along the flagstone path back towards the gate. As I pushed through, I've been on the route for 6 months now, a rookie driver learning the grit of this city's brownstone districts. My job is package delivery, and most days it's a rhythm of scanning, lifting, and navigating the stoops. The company issues us standard cold weather gear, and we're drilled on hazard recognition. Wet leaves, uneven paving, loose handrails. My scanner logs every stop, every package, every minute. I rely on it, and on the van's external thermometer, which usually aligns with the city's weather app. It's a system built on predictability. This particular Tuesday, the van's dash read 31 degrees Fahrenheit. The city app confirmed it. Clear skies, no precipitation for 24 hours. My route took me through a section of older, tightly packed brownstones where the buildings often shared walls, their facades a uniform brick or sandstone. It was late afternoon, the light already fading, casting long shadows down the narrow streets. The air was still, carrying the faint scent of exhaust and something else, a metallic tang that sometimes accompanies extreme cold. I had 2 boxes for an address on Willow Street, a heavy appliance part, and a smaller, oddly shaped parcel. I parked at the curb cut, engaged the emergency brake, and checked the street. Everything looked dry. No puddles, no sheen on the asphalt. My internal rule, one I'd developed through a few close calls on earlier shifts, was simple. If the pavement isn't visibly wet, and the temperature is above freezing, it's clear. Today, the temperature was just below, but the absence of any moisture made me confident. I grabbed the packages, secured them against my chest, and started up the short, 4-step stoop. My right foot landed on the first tread. My left followed. As I shifted my weight to pivot for the second step, the world tilted. My feet, encased in regulation non-slip boots, suddenly had no purchase. It wasn't a slip. It was a skate. My body went sideways, a controlled, involuntary slide. The heavy boxes shifted, threatening to pull me forward. I barely caught myself, a desperate lurch that brought my shoulder hard against the brick facade. The boxes stayed in my grip, but my heart hammered. I stood, frozen, breath-fogging, staring at the step. It looked perfectly dry. I carefully planted my feet, testing the surface. It was glass, invisible, seamless, utterly treacherous. Black ice. I ran my gloved hand along the ornate metal handrail beside me. It was distinctly warm, almost hot to the touch, especially near the base where it met the stoop. I looked up. Above the first-floor window, a small vent grill was expelling a steady stream of heated air, presumably from a dryer or furnace. The warm air was hitting the handrail and then drifting down, creating a microclimate. It melted any ambient moisture on the steps, then, in the 31-degree air, refroze it instantly, forming an invisible, slick stripe across each tread. The rest of the stoop, The parts not directly in the path of the warm vent were perfectly dry, rough stone. I delivered the packages, my movements slow and deliberate, each step a conscious effort. The recipient, a woman who opened the door just a crack, seemed oblivious. I noted the hazard in my scanner's incident log, a standard procedure for anything that could cause injury. Hazard: black ice, stoop, 123 Willow Street. Localized due to vent exhaust. I felt a prickle of unease. My reliance on visual cues had almost put me on my back. The rest of the route I was on high alert. Every step up to a front door became a calculated risk. I started testing surfaces with my boot toe before committing weight. The van's heater hummed, and the smell of stale coffee and cardboard filled the cabin. A scent I usually found comforting, but today it felt cloying. I remembered a winter afternoon as a kid, building a snow fort with my older brother, the snow clean and crisp under my mittens. That kind of cold was honest. This felt deceptive. 2 days later, the temperature had climbed to 34 degrees. Still above freezing, according to the city app. I was on a different route, but a call came over the dispatch radio. Unit 2, another driver, had taken a fall. A broken wrist. Location: 123 Willow Street. My stomach clenched. I'd logged the hazard. Had anyone seen it? Had maintenance been sent? I called dispatch. This is Unit 7. Regarding the incident at 123 Willow. I reported black ice there 2 days ago. Was a maintenance request filed? Hold 1, Unit 7, the dispatcher replied, her voice flat. A pause. Report shows reviewed, Unit 7. No action taken. It was listed as localized weather phenomenon. Temperature was 31 degrees at the time of your report. Above freezing now. It's a vent, creating a localized melt and refreeze, I explained, trying to keep my voice even. It's not just ambient weather. Understood, Unit 7. We'll note that. Unit 2 is being treated. Maintenance will be dispatched to assess. Later that evening, after my shift, I drove back to Willow Street in my personal vehicle. The streetlights cast a pale glow. The temperature, my car's thermometer read, was 33 degrees. I walked up to the stoop at 123. The vent was still blowing warm air. The handrail was still warm. The steps, under the artificial light, still looked dry. But when I pressed my shoe, I felt that familiar, subtle give, the slight resistance of an invisible film. The black ice was still there, in the exact same stripes, despite the above-freezing temperature. It was a permanent fixture, a trap. I pulled out my phone and tried to record a video, but the black ice was almost impossible to capture. It just looked like wet stone. Then I remembered the doorbell cameras. Most of these brownstones had them. I stepped back, out of frame, and watched as a delivery driver from a competitor company approached the stoop. He was holding a single envelope. He moved with the same casual confidence I had 2 days prior. He took the first step, then the second. Just as he pivoted, his feet went out from under him. He dropped the envelope, windmilled his arms, and managed to catch himself on the handrail, swearing under his breath. He picked up the envelope, glared at the steps, and then quickly completed the delivery, gingerly stepping off. I checked the doorbell camera app for that address. It was public access for recent recordings. I scrolled back to the time of the other driver's fall earlier that day. The video showed the exact same sequence. The driver approaching, the near fall. The audio, however, was what unnerved me. As the driver slipped, the recording picked up a distinct, whistling sound, like a strong gust of wind. But in the video, the trees on the street were absolutely still. Not a leaf rustled. The sound was localized, confined to the immediate vicinity of the stoop, a whisper of air that didn't exist in the visible world. I watched my own near fall from 2 days prior. The same thing. As I slid, the audio track registered a sudden, sharp rush of wind, even though the street was calm. I watched the competitor driver again. The wind sound was there too, a brief, sharp intake of breath from the environment itself, just as someone lost their footing. It wasn't just ice. It was as if the act of slipping on that specific, localized ice created its own auditory anomaly, a burst of phantom wind. I returned to the brownstone a week later. The city had seen a cold snap, temperatures dropping to the teens. Then a thaw, up to 40 degrees. The vent was still blowing. The handrail was still warm. The ice, in its precise stripes, was still there. I didn't approach the steps. I just stood across the street, watching, listening. The wind was picking up now, a real biting wind, rattling the branches of the still bare trees. But I knew that if someone were to slip on those steps, the doorbell camera would record a distinct, unnatural gust, a sound that didn't belong to the visible world. I reported it again, this time with a detailed account of the auditory anomaly. Dispatch logged it. No action was taken. The problem, they said, was purely environmental, just localized weather, nothing more. I've owned this house for 17 years, long enough to know every creak in the floorboards, every shadow cast by the old oak in the front yard. It's a quiet street, part of an older development where the houses, while distinct, share certain architectural flourishes. My routine is predictable, especially now that most of my errands are handled online. Deliveries are a daily occurrence, a seamless extension of my digital life. My porch, with its specific light fixture, and the seasonal wreath I change out every few months, is a familiar sight. I rely on the delivery service's proof photos, and more importantly, on my own 2 security cameras, one covering the front door, another trained on the back gate leading to the alley. Last Tuesday, a notification popped up on my phone. Your package has been delivered. I clicked to view the proof photo. It showed a brown cardboard box resting neatly beside a potted fern, beneath a porch light identical to mine. The wreath, currently a braided straw affair with dried lavender, was also a perfect match. For a second, I felt that familiar satisfaction. Then, a small detail snagged my attention. My front door, a solid oak panel, has its hinges on the left when viewed from the porch. The door in the photo, however, clearly showed the hinges on the right. It was a fleeting observation, easily dismissed as a trick of the lens, or perhaps a slight angle distortion. I've been staring at screens all day. Sometimes my eyes play tricks on me. I closed the app, assuming the package would be waiting. But when I stepped onto my porch, the space was empty. No box, no fern, no delivery. Just the familiar silence of the street and the low hum of the utility box across the way. My first thought was a simple misdelivery. It happens. I pulled up the photo again, magnifying it. The hinges weren't distorted. They were unequivocally on the right side of the doorframe. My house, 123 Elm Street, has its hinges on the left. This wasn't a trick of light. It was a physical impossibility for my house. I initiated a claim with the delivery company. The automated system required me to confirm the photo matched my address. I typed a concise explanation, detailing the hinge discrepancy. A representative, after a short hold, informed me the photo was geotagged to 123 Elm Street and showed a clear delivery. I reiterated the hinge issue. There was a pause. "Sir, the photo shows a door, a wreath, a light. It's your address." They couldn't grasp the specific architectural detail. I felt a surge of frustration, a small professional protocol failing on their end. Their system, designed for efficiency, couldn't process a nuance like a reversed hinge. They promised an investigation, which felt like a polite dismissal. My immediate next step was to check my own security footage. The front camera showed nothing. No delivery vehicle, no person approaching my door at the timestamp indicated by the delivery service. My system logs every motion, every passing shadow. The timestamp on the delivery photo was 2:17 p.m. My front camera log was blank for that minute. This neighborhood has a peculiar architectural feature. The houses on my street, Elm Street, back onto a long, narrow alley. On the other side of that alley is Maple Street. And on Maple Street, specifically at the address 123 Maple Street, stands a house that is, in essence, a mirror image of mine. Same footprint, same number of windows, same porch layout, same light fixture, even the same general landscaping. It's a design quirk from the original developer, a mirrored block, where addresses on parallel streets are identical in layout, but reversed. I've always found it a quaint detail, a testament to the efficient use of blueprints. I remember once, years ago, a new neighbor on Maple Street mistook my house for theirs after a few too many celebratory drinks. We had a good laugh about it. It clicked. The delivery photo wasn't of my house. It was of 123 Maple Street. The hinges would be on the right, a perfect mirror of my own door. The delivery driver, seeing an identical porch and address number, had simply gone to the wrong street, assuming the alley was the same road. It was a simple, logical explanation. I decided to confirm this. I walked out my back gate into the alley. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decaying leaves from the backyards. The alley itself is unpaved, a gravel path that runs the length of the block, providing access to garages and utility meters. It's a single lane, wide enough for a utility truck or a delivery van, but certainly not for two-way traffic or quick U-turns. I walked the short distance to where my back gate would mirror the gate of 123 Maple Street. Sure enough, the gate, the small patch of lawn, the back door, all were reversed copies of my own. Back inside, I pulled up the footage from my back alley camera. If the driver had gone to Maple Street, they would have had to access it from one end of the alley, or driven around the block. I focused on the 2:17 p.m. timestamp. The footage started. A white delivery van, clearly identifiable by its company logo, entered the alley from the east end. It drove past my back gate, heading west. The timestamp on the camera read 2:17:03 p.m. I watched it continue down the alley, out of frame. I fast-forwarded a few seconds, expecting to see it exit the alley at the far end, or perhaps turn into one of the driveways. Then, at 2:17:48 p.m., the exact same white delivery van, with the same company logo, drove past my back gate again. This time it was heading east, back towards the alley entrance it had just come from. I rewound the clip, played it again. 2:17:03 p.m. Van enters alley, heading west, passes my camera. 2:17:48 p.m. Van passes my camera again, heading east. 45 seconds. The alley is approximately 400 feet long. For a vehicle to drive 400 feet, turn around in a narrow, unpaved alley, and drive back another 400 feet, all within 45 seconds, is impossible. Even at an unsafe speed, the maneuver alone would take longer. There are no turnoffs, no hidden exits, no side streets. It's a straight shot, a dead end for through traffic. The van would have had to reach the end of the alley, turn around, and then drive back. This would take at least a minute and a half, if not two, assuming a cautious driver. I replayed the footage multiple times, checking the timestamps, zooming in on the van's details. It was the same van. There wasn't another vehicle. It didn't appear to be accelerating or decelerating unnaturally. It simply passed, then passed again, in the opposite direction, within the same minute. My logical explanation of the mirrored block delivery now felt incomplete, overshadowed by this new, impossible anomaly. The delivery company's system, I now understood, likely treated 123 Elm Street and 123 Maple Street as aliases, given their mirrored layout and proximity via the alley. It was a flaw in their routing, a failure to differentiate. But the footage from my back camera defied any logical explanation. The van didn't just go to the wrong house. It performed an impossible spatial-temporal maneuver in the alley between the two addresses. I still don't have the package. The delivery company eventually closed the claim, citing proof of delivery and the geotag. They couldn't explain the front camera's blank log, nor did they have any record of the van's impossible double pass in the alley. They simply stated their driver completed the route as scheduled. I've reviewed the footage countless times. The timestamps are synced to a network time server. My cameras are reliable. The alley is still there, unchanged. The mirrored house on Maple Street still stands, a perfect, reversed copy of my own. The quaint architectural quirk now feels like a deliberate trap, a spatial illusion that allows for these impossible events. I look at my back gate, then across the alley to the mirror house, and I wonder what exactly happened in that 45-second window, and where the van truly went. I've been an app courier for over 5 years, logging thousands of deliveries across the city's urban core, mostly high-rise residential and dense condo complexes. My setup is standard: a thermal-lined delivery bag, the company-issued smartphone that's my lifeline, and a small, chest-mounted body camera. That camera runs constantly, a non-negotiable part of the job. It's for accountability, both mine and the customers, a digital witness to every handoff. Usually, it just records me navigating busy streets, the occasional frustrating wait, and the mundane exchange of a package for a confirmation code. It's a job built on routine and precise digital handshakes. The procedure is straightforward, drilled into us from day one. Arrive at the address, confirm the building number, locate the buzzer panel. If it's a secure building, you buzz the customer, announce your presence, and wait for them to grant access. Once inside, you proceed to their unit. At the door, you present the package. The customer provides a unique, single-use alphanumeric code from their app, and you input it into your device. That code is the legal proof of delivery. It clears the order from your queue, pings customer received to the system, and allows you to move on. This protocol ensures the right package goes to the right person, every time. It's the bedrock of the entire operation. This particular Tuesday evening, the air was still and humid, carrying the faint scent of exhaust fumes mixed with blooming jasmine from a nearby parquet. I was on my last run of the night, a late dinner order for a condo building I knew well. It was one of those newer structures, all glass and polished concrete, with a sleek, minimalist lobby. The address popped up on my screen. Unit 1407. I pulled up to the curb, killed the engine, and grabbed the insulated bag. My phone screen glowed, showing the delivery details, the customer's name, and the standard prompt to buzz. I walked up to the main entrance, a heavy glass door flanked by a digital intercom panel. My finger hovered over the keypad ready to input 1407. But before I could even press the first digit, my phone vibrated. The app screen refreshed. The delivery status instantly changed from arrived awaiting customer to delivered, customer received. The unique handoff code, the one I hadn't even seen yet, was gone, replaced by a green check mark. My queue cleared. I stared at the screen, then at the unbuzzed intercom. A moment of fatigue washed over me. It had been a long shift, a few too many tight turns in traffic. I wondered if I'd somehow missed a prompt, or if the customer had some remote acceptance feature I wasn't aware of. It was unusual, but I'd heard of people having smart home systems linked to their apps. Maybe they saw me pulling up on a lobby camera and hit a button. I dismissed the brief flicker of unease, assuming it was just a new, efficient way for a tech-savvy resident to expedite things. I even chuckled to myself, thinking about how some people just want to get their food and move on. That was my mistake. I should have questioned it immediately. Then, the app updated again. The blue pin, which had been fixed squarely on the main entrance, shimmered and drifted. It relocated to the rear of the building, highlighting a small, almost hidden icon labeled stairwell access. Below it, a new instruction appeared. Deposit package at rear parcel shelf. Confirmed by customer. This was not standard. Never had I been instructed to leave a package at an unmonitored rear entrance, especially not after the app had already confirmed receipt. The core protocol of a direct handoff had been bypassed, not just by the early acceptance, but by this new directive. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. The air, which had felt merely humid moments ago, now seemed heavy, oppressive. I walked around the perimeter of the building, past the waste disposal area and the loading dock, the drone of the building's massive HVAC system a low thrum in the background. The rear stairwell entrance was exactly as the pin indicated, a plain steel door, painted a faded institutional green, with a small, rusted sign that read, "Emergency exit only. Alarm will sound." To its left, bolted to the concrete wall, was a narrow, unadorned metal shelf, clearly meant for parcels. It was barely lit by a single, flickering fluorescent tube above. The entire area smelled faintly of damp concrete and something metallic, like old pennies. My body camera was still recording. I pulled out my phone, confirmed the app's instruction, and placed the insulated bag on the shelf. As I did, a distinct sound reached my ears. Footsteps. Light, quick, descending steps, echoing from somewhere above me, within the stairwell itself. They sounded like someone was coming down, quickly, perhaps 2 or 3 flights up. I paused, my hand still on the bag, expecting the steel door to open. I waited, The footsteps continued, growing fainter, as if moving further down, or perhaps past me. Then they stopped. The only sound left was the distant hum of the HVAC. I waited another 30 seconds, my eyes fixed on the door, my ears straining. Nothing. No door opened. No one emerged. The silence that followed felt deeper than before. I checked my phone again. The order was still marked "Delivered." The customer's information was gone from my active queue, archived. The system, as far as it was concerned, was satisfied. I tried to call the customer through the app's anonymized number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. No option to leave a message. I tried a second time, same result. The protocol for a failed delivery or an unverified drop-off was to contact the customer. Then, if unsuccessful, return the package to the depot. But the app insisted the delivery was complete. The system had already accepted the handoff. It had been remotely accepted. I stood there for another minute, the humid air pressing in. The feeling of unease solidified into something sharper, a sense of profound wrongness. I thought of a simple delivery earlier that day, a cheerful elderly woman who had met me at her door with a warm thank you and a clear, audible code. That felt like 100 years ago. Against my better judgment, against every fiber of my training that screamed direct handoff, I left the package on the shelf. The app had cleared it. The customer had confirmed. I had followed the new, impossible instruction. I walked back to my vehicle, the fluorescent flicker from the stairwell exit receding behind me. Later that night, back at my apartment, I reviewed the body cam footage. The timestamp matched my arrival at the rear stairwell. My voice was clear. The sound of the bag being placed on the shelf was audible. And there, unmistakable, were the footsteps. Light, rhythmic, descending, just as I remembered. I pulled up the building's public-facing security feed for that time, accessed through a local news portal that often streams public area cameras. The camera covering the rear stairwell entrance showed the steel door. It showed me placing the package. It showed me walking away. But at no point, from the moment I arrived until I left, did that door open. At no point did any person enter or exit the stairwell. The security feed showed an empty stairwell. My body cam heard footsteps from within. The building's camera saw no one. The next morning, the package was gone from the shelf. The delivery remained completed in the system. I never received a complaint, no bad review, no inquiry. The incident was a closed loop, a perfect digital transaction. But the memory of those footsteps, heard but unseen, remains. Every time the app pings a delivery confirmation, I feel a chill. Every time I approach a secure building, I wonder if the code will clear before I even reach the buzzer. And I wonder who, or what, is on the other side of that screen, accepting the package. I've been a city carrier for 15 years, mostly on the downtown routes. You learn the rhythm of a district, the subtle changes in its pulse. I know which gates are sticky, which dogs bark but never bite, and which alleys hold the most aggressive dumpster divers. My daily kit is standard issue: scanner, satchel, master keyring, dog spray, and a small, well-worn flashlight. Most days are routine, a predictable cycle of deliveries and pickups. You rely on that predictability. You rely on systems working as designed. One of the core tenets of our safety protocol, especially in areas with high animal traffic, is simple. Never enter an unsecured property if animals are present or suspected. Furthermore, always check gate integrity before entry. It's drilled into us from day one. A locked gate is a barrier, a promise of security. An unlocked or compromised gate is an immediate red flag, a signal to halt, assess, and report. It was late afternoon on a Tuesday, the air still thick with humidity from a morning shower that had since burned off. The sun, low in the west, cast long shadows down the alleyways, making some of the older brickwork glow a deep orange. I was approaching the rear loading bay of the old textile building, a regular stop. They always had a package, sometimes two. The alley itself was narrow, lined with dumpsters and the occasional discarded pallet. A sprinkler system had just finished its cycle, leaving the asphalt slick and reflecting the sky in a distorted, shimmering sheet. I remember thinking how the light played off the puddles, creating brief, shifting rainbows that vanished the moment I stepped into them. It was a pretty, fleeting detail, entirely out of place for that grimy alley. I was about 10 feet from the heavy steel gate that secured their trash corral and bay access. It was a standard sliding model, about 8 feet high, with a solid steel plate on the bottom half and chain link above. I heard it before I saw it. A sharp, metallic clack, followed by a grinding sound, like heavy iron scraping concrete. My pace didn't break immediately. Sometimes the wind catches these things. But then I saw it. The latch plate, a solid piece of quarter-inch steel, lay on the ground, detached from the gate frame. It hadn't just slid open. It had failed. Before I could process the sight, 3 dogs shot past me. They were a mix of breeds, all medium-sized, their fur dark and matted, slick with water from the recently active sprinklers. They moved with an almost unnatural speed, a low blur against the brick, silent except for the slap of their paws on the wet pavement. They didn't bark, didn't growl, just went. One moment the alley was empty, the next they were there, then gone, disappearing around the far corner of the block. My hand was already on my dog spray, but they were too fast, too far, too quiet. The entire incident, from the sound of the latch to their disappearance, couldn't have taken more than 3 seconds. I stood there for a moment, the spray canister still in my hand, heart pounding against my ribs. Protocol kicked in. I immediately marked the textile building as an animal hazard on my scanner, noting the gate failure. Then I called dispatch. Unit 27, reporting a gate failure at 1400 Elm Street, rear loading bay. 3 loose dogs, unknown breed, non-aggressive, but the property is compromised. I'm holding at a safe distance. Dispatch acknowledged, telling me to secure the area if possible and wait for a supervisor or animal control. I walked cautiously to the gate. The latch plate was indeed on the ground. The receiving post, usually a solid anchor, was bent inward, the steel stressed and warped. It looked like something had hit it with tremendous force. From the inside. This didn't sit right. Dogs, even large ones, don't usually bend structural steel like that, and they certainly don't typically break a heavy-duty latch plate clean off its bolts. My supervisor arrived about 20 minutes later, pulling up in the district's unmarked sedan. He surveyed the damage, took some photos, and then turned his attention to the loading bay itself. "They've got a security cam pointed right at this gate," he said, pointing to a dome camera mounted high on the building's corner. "Let's see what it shows." We went inside. The building manager, a quiet man named Mr. Henderson, met us in the security office. He pulled up the footage from about 5 minutes before my arrival. The timestamp on the screen read 3:47 p.m. The gate was closed, secure. The alley was empty. The sprinklers were still running, a fine mist visible in the camera's wide angle. Then, at 3:48:12 p.m., the gate bowed inward. Not a gentle flex, but a distinct, visible curve of the heavy steel. It was as if something immense had pushed it from the outside, into the property. The chain link above the steel plate rattled violently. There was no visible object, no truck, no person in the frame. Just the gate, flexing. A split second later, 3:48:13 p.m., the latch plate gave way with a sudden, jarring slam that even the camera's muffled audio picked up. The gate sprang open, and the 3 dogs burst out, wet and low to the ground, exactly as I'd seen them. They were already moving at top speed, as if propelled. They didn't push the gate open, they reacted to it opening. They ran past the point where the gate had bowed inward, disappearing from view. "What in the world?" my supervisor muttered, rewinding the footage. We watched it 3 more times. Each time, the same sequence. Gate secure, then a sudden inward bow, followed by the latch failure and the dogs bolting. The manager just shook his head, his face pale. "There's nothing on the other side," he said. "Just the bay door, usually closed at this time. And the trash." "Can we get a better angle?" I asked, a thought nagging at me. The camera was high, but the top of the adjacent dumpster was just out of frame, obstructing a full view of the ground directly behind the gate. I remembered climbing similar obstacles in my youth to retrieve a lost baseball or a kite. It was a foolish, almost instinctual thought, driven by the need to understand. I knew it wasn't official procedure to scale objects for a better view, but the mystery of that bowing gate was pressing. "I can get up on that dumpster," I offered, pointing to the large industrial bin just outside the loading bay door. "Maybe get a clearer line of sight for the camera." My supervisor hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful, don't fall." Outside, the air felt cooler, the humidity dropping. The alley still smelled faintly of damp concrete and the metallic tang of old rain. I climbed the dumpster, the corrugated metal groaning under my weight. It was surprisingly stable, but the smell of decaying organic matter, mixed with something sharp and chemical, was overwhelming. My boots found purchase on the rim. From this new vantage point I could see the camera's lens, and beyond it, the full sweep of the alley. "Okay, Mr. Henderson," I called down. "Can you rewind to that exact moment? I'll tell you what I see." He did. The gate bowed inward again on the monitor, visible from my new perspective, but even with the improved line of sight, there was nothing. No person, no vehicle, no animal pushing from the outside. The space behind the gate, where the force must have originated, was empty. The camera showed only the solid bay door and the concrete floor. It was a perfect, unobstructed view of nothing. The gate simply flexed, as if an invisible hand had pressed against it. The dogs were still gone, Animal control would be notified, the gate repaired. But the footage remained. A heavy steel gate, bending inward under an unseen force before it failed. The dogs released, bolting into the humid afternoon. I finished my route that day, but the usual rhythm of the district felt off, subtly altered. The predictable had given way to something else. Something that left a cold, inexplicable knot in my stomach. And the memory of that gate, bowing under an invisible pressure, still surfaces sometimes when I walk a quiet alley, making me check the locks a little more closely and listen a little more carefully for sounds that don't belong. As a route auditor for the Regional Distribution Center, I spend my shift sifting through data points. 15 years in, I've seen every flavor of delivery hiccup, from misscanned addresses to packages left on the wrong porch. My job is to find the anomaly, trace it back, and ensure it doesn't happen again. It's a dry, meticulous role, mostly spreadsheets and GPS logs, but the system relies on it. Every package, every scan, every timestamp forms a chain of custody. Break that chain, and the whole operation falters. My desk sits near the server room, a constant hum of machinery, a low thrum against the floor. Sometimes, the faint scent of ozone drifts over, mixing with the stale coffee from the break room. This morning, the audit flagged a peculiar entry. A single tracking number, marked as delivered not once, but twice. The system, designed for unique identifiers, should have rejected the second scan outright. It hadn't. I pulled up the first delivery event. Tracking ID 741-B-9983-CL. Delivered on a Tuesday, just over a week ago. The timestamp read 11:17 a.m. GPS coordinates placed it squarely in a cul-de-sac on the north side of the city. The proof of delivery photo showed a standard brown box on a concrete porch, a welcome mat, and a potted fern. Behind it, a beige house with a dark green front door. The sky above was partly cloudy, a few distinct cumulus formations visible. Then I pulled up the second event. Same tracking ID, 741-B-9983-CL. Delivered yesterday, a Wednesday. Timestamp, 11:18 a.m. GPS coordinates identical to the first. And the proof of delivery photo? It was a mirror image. The exact same brown box. Welcome mat. Potted fern. Beige house, dark green door. Even the same pattern of light and shadow suggested it was a minor mistake on my part, dismissing the true oddity too quickly. But a recycled photo wouldn't explain the system accepting the duplicate tracking number. I dug deeper. I accessed the metadata for both image files. The first photo, uploaded last Tuesday, showed standard EXIF data: camera model, aperture, shutter speed, and an internal timestamp of 11:17:03 a.m. The second photo, uploaded yesterday, showed identical camera model, aperture, shutter speed, and its internal timestamp, 11:17:03 a.m. This was impossible. The system's upload logs clearly stated the second photo was submitted yesterday, a week after the first, yet the photo itself claimed to have been taken at precisely the same second as the first. A digital clone. Not just a re-upload, but a perfect replication of the original data, somehow associated with a new delivery event a week later. I called the supervisor over. "Take a look at this," I said, pointing to the 2 entries on my screen. Same tracking number, same photo, different delivery dates. The supervisor, a man who'd seen his share of glitches, squinted at the screen. "System error, maybe? Database hiccup?" "The EXIF data is identical," I countered, showing him the internal timestamps. "Right down to the second, but the upload times are a week apart." He rubbed his chin. "That's new. No driver would go to this much trouble to fake a delivery, and the system shouldn't have allowed a second scan on an already delivered package without an override." He paused. "Go out there, check the address, see if the package is still there, or if there are 2. Talk to the resident. Something's off." My usual protocol for a suspected duplicate delivery involved contacting the original driver, checking their manifest, and then reaching out to the recipient. But the metadata anomaly bypassed all that. This wasn't about a missing package or a driver error. It was about the integrity of the data itself. The protocol was failing before I even started. I grabbed my tablet and the printouts. The address was in a newer development, a series of looping streets and cul-de-sacs. I remembered delivering to that area years ago, a particularly hot summer day, when the asphalt shimmered and the air conditioning in my old truck barely worked. I'd spent that entire afternoon wishing for a cold drink, a simple, tangible problem. This felt different. The drive took about 20 minutes. As I approached the cul-de-sac, it looked exactly as it did in the photos. The beige house, the dark green door. Even the potted ferns seemed to occupy the same spot on the porch. No package was visible. I parked and got out, walking toward the house. I pulled up the photos on my tablet, zooming in, comparing the details. The welcome mat was identical. The texture of the concrete. The slight discoloration on the siding. It was uncanny. Then I looked up at the sky. The clouds were sparse today, a few wisps moving slowly eastward. I looked back at the photos. The first photo showed the distinct cumulus formations moving from west to east. The second photo, taken a week later but identical in every other detail, showed the same cloud formations, but their trailing edges suggested movement from east to west, as if the wind had reversed direction, but the clouds themselves were frozen in the same pattern. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. I turned my attention to the street. The cul-de-sac forked into 2 small loops, each with a street sign. One read Willow Bend and pointed left. The other read Elm Circle and pointed right. I distinctly remembered these signs from reviewing the map wall back at the depot. I'd even traced the route mentally, noting the 2 loops. But as I stood there, looking at the actual signs, a cold knot formed in my stomach. In the photos, Willow Bend was on the left, Elm Circle on the right, just as I saw them now. But in the second photo, the one from yesterday, the signpost itself appeared to be twisted. Willow Bend pointed right, and Elm Circle pointed left. Yet the houses visible down each fork in both photos were identical. The beige house with the green door was always on the Willow Bend side. It wasn't just the signage that had swapped. It was the entire directional context of the fork. The physical orientation of the world had inverted itself between the two deliveries, yet the target house remained in the same visual position. I walked closer to the signpost. It was a standard municipal pole, bolted to the ground. There was no way it could have been physically rotated 180 degrees overnight and then returned to its original position without obvious signs of tampering. No fresh concrete, no disturbed earth, no scraped paint. It was pristine. I looked at my watch. It was just past 11 a.m., the time of the original delivery, the time of the duplicated delivery. I stood there, the only sound the distant drone of a lawnmower, my own breath catching in my throat. The air felt heavy, thick. I didn't knock on the door. What would I say? "Excuse me, did you receive a package twice, a week apart, from a day that appears to have repeated itself, only with the clouds moving backwards and your street signs swapped?" I returned to the depot. My report was brief, marked anomaly unresolved. The supervisor read it, his brow furrowed. He looked at the duplicate entries on my screen, then at the printouts of the photos, then back at me. "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying the system recorded 2 deliveries," I replied, my voice flat. "But the evidence suggests only one event, somehow stretched across a week, with contradictory temporal and spatial data embedded within it." He just stared at the screen, then at the map wall. But the reality of it was a contradiction, a scan echo that defied every protocol, every rule of time and space I knew. And I had no way to mark it resolved. I've been a dispatcher for 23 years, monitoring the arteries of this city's logistics. My shift starts at 0600, usually with the low hum of the server rack behind my console and the faint smell of ozone from the equipment. I oversee a fleet of 32 vehicles, everything from light delivery vans to heavy articulated trucks, navigating 100 square miles of urban sprawl and its surrounding industrial parks. My tools are a 6-monitor array, a multi-channel radio, and a digital mapping system that tracks every unit in real time. My job is to keep things moving, to anticipate problems, and to reroute before a bottleneck forms. It's a job built on information flow and immediate response. This particular morning, a Tuesday in late October, the weather was the primary concern. A cold front had stalled over the region, dumping rain for nearly 36 hours straight. Flash flood warnings were active for the low-lying areas, especially the viaducts that cut under the old railway lines. One in particular, Viaduct 7, was notorious for collecting water. Even a moderate downpour could turn it into a deep, impassable trench. My protocol for Viaduct 7 was always the same. If the city's flood sensors showed more than 6 inches, or if I got an early report from a driver, I'd issue a blanket warning to all units approaching that sector. No exceptions. Better a 5-minute detour than a submerged engine and a recovery tow. Around 07:15, the weather service alert flashed red on my secondary monitor. Viaduct 7, water level critical. Avoid. I immediately zoomed in on the mapping system. Unit 14, a Class 8 truck carrying a critical pharmaceutical shipment, was less than a mile from the viaduct's entrance. The driver was on a tight schedule, pushing hard to make an early delivery window. I knew the route well. Viaduct 7 was the most direct path. I keyed the microphone, the plastic cool and smooth under my thumb. Unit 14, dispatch. Do you copy? A beat of static, then the driver's voice, clear and unhurried. Copy, dispatch. Go ahead. Unit 14, be advised, Viaduct 7 is reporting critical flood levels. Do not attempt passage. Reroute via Elm Street to the north. Confirm reroute. My finger was still on the transmit key, the click not yet fully released, when the reply came back. It wasn't just fast. It was instantaneous. There was no discernible delay, no echo, no radio artifact. It was as if the words had been spoken before I finished my own transmission. Copy. Already done. The words hung in the air of the control room. Too quick. Too smooth. I paused, my thumb still pressed to the key, a faint impression forming on the pad. The hum of the server rack seemed to deepen, a low thrum against my ribs. I looked at the radio's small, reflective screen, the dark glass mirroring my own surprised face, and for a split second, I thought I saw the words, "Already done," flicker across it, as if they were a visual echo of the sound, a phantom caption. It was a momentary optical illusion, I told myself. A trick of the light and my own fatigue. I'd been on shift since midnight, covering for a sick colleague, and the hours were starting to blur. That was my mistake. A brief lapse in full attention, attributing the anomaly to my own tired eyes. I released the key, shaking my head slightly. Unit 14, confirm your current position and heading, please. I needed to verify. The reply had been too quick, too perfect. My protocol dictates waiting for a full transmission to complete, and then a clear acknowledgement. This had bypassed the natural rhythm of radio communication. Before the driver could respond, the mapping system on my main screen updated. The GPS data indicated the vehicle was now halfway down Elm, a street the driver hadn't even reached when I issued the warning. It was physically impossible. The truck would have had to anticipate my instruction, make the turn, and cover a quarter mile in the fraction of a second it took for me to release the transmit key. My stomach tightened. I checked the timestamp on the GPS data. It was live, updating every 3 seconds. The system showed the vehicle's position and speed, consistent with being on Elm Street, now. This wasn't a glitch in the map. This was a glitch in reality. I called the supervisor over. Look at this, sir. Unit 14. I just warned them about Viaduct 7. The driver replied, already done, before I finished, and the GPS shows them on the detour I just gave them. They hadn't even reached the intersection. The supervisor, a pragmatic man who trusted data above all else, leaned over my shoulder. He checked the radio log, then the GPS trace. His brow furrowed. The timestamp on your transmission and the timestamp on the GPS update. They're too close. Less than a second difference. That's not right. He pulled up the vehicle's historical data. No pre-programmed detour for this route. No manual input from the driver either. It just changed. And the reply, sir. It was like he knew what I was going to say. He grunted, running a hand over his thinning hair. Keep an eye on it. Let's see what happens at the next stop. Unit 14's next scheduled delivery was at a regional distribution center on the outskirts of the city, about 20 minutes away by the new route. This particular center had a network of external security cameras, including a porch cam that offered a wide view of the loading dock and the access road. It was a standard feature for high-value deliveries, allowing us to verify arrival and condition. I called the center's security and requested access to their live feed for Unit 14's bay. The feed popped up on one of my auxiliary monitors. It was still raining, a steady gray sheet. The loading dock was empty. The access road, a gentle incline leading up to the dock, was slick with water. I watched, my eyes fixed on the screen, waiting for Unit 14 to appear. The truck arrived precisely on schedule, pulling up to the designated bay. The driver, a familiar face I'd known for years, parked the rig with practiced ease. But as I watched, something else caught my attention. The water on the access road. It wasn't just running down the incline, as gravity dictated. There was a visible current, a shimmering sheet of water flowing uphill towards the loading dock. It was subtle at first, a slight ripple against the natural flow. But then it became more pronounced, a distinct countercurrent pushing against the rain-swollen rivulets. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. Was it a camera distortion? A trick of the light on the wet pavement? I zoomed in, then out. The rain was clearly falling down, hitting the ground and splashing. But the surface water, particularly in the tire tracks left by the truck, was unquestionably moving against the slope. It was like watching a film played in reverse, but only for the water. "Sir," I called out to the supervisor, my voice tight. "Look at the porch cam, Unit 14's stop." He came back over, squinting at the screen. He saw it too. His face, usually impassive, showed a flicker of disbelief. "What in God's name?" he muttered. We watched in silence for another minute. The driver emerged from the cab, oblivious, pulling on a rain jacket. He walked around to the back of the trailer, the water swirling around his boots, some of it clearly moving uphill past his feet. The supervisor picked up the phone, dialing the central IT department. "We have a possible system anomaly with Unit 14's GPS and a visual feed. I need someone to check the timestamps, the packet data, everything, and pull the radio logs for the last hour on Channel 3. I continued to watch the screen, the impossible current of water flowing uphill, defying every law of physics I understood. The driver finished his delivery, signed the paperwork, and got back into the cab. As he started the engine, the water on the access road seemed to settle, losing its unnatural countercurrent. It reverted to flowing downhill, as if the anomaly had only existed in the presence of Unit 14. I never got a clear answer from it. They found no corrupted data, no system breaches, no logical explanation for the GPS jump or the radio transmission. The radio log showed my warning, and then, a fraction of a second later, Unit 14's reply. No overlap, no missing data. Just an impossibly quick response, perfectly aligned. The security center confirmed their camera feed was recording normally. No glitches. They couldn't explain the water either. Unit 14 completed its route without further incident, delivering its remaining packages on time, every time. The driver reported no issues, no strange occurrences. He simply said he'd taken the Elm Street detour because he'd heard the flood warning. When I asked him about the timing, he just shrugged. Heard you tell me, knew the drill, turned off. He didn't remember replying before I finished, or seeing water flow uphill. After that day, I started double-checking everything. Every warning, every reroute. I'd spend an extra beat on the transmit key, listening for the full static burst after my voice, just to ensure there was no preemptive reply. The hum of the server rack still accompanies my shift, but now, sometimes, it sounds less like machinery and more like a low, continuous whisper, just on the edge of hearing, promising to answer before the question is even fully formed.